sorry for butting in too early before. Two-pronged question. Do you all agree that the biggest challenge facing us in the East Midlands and in the whole world is the challenge of climate change, of doing something to reverse the increase in temperatures of the Earth? And if you do, how are you going to balance putting forward the message of the urgency of reversing policies to prevent climate change, with also putting over the message of social justice, which also is a prominent theme of the Green Party?
It's me, isn't it? I think that is really important that we get the message across. You cannot address one without the other. I really think, and this is something I'm quite passionate about, and I appreciate the Green Manifesto around this, that actually we need to look at the injustice and the inequality of wealth and a lack of jobs in Europe spreading now after this recession or during this recession, looking at the same time creating jobs in the alternative energy industry, and therefore we're addressing both at the same time. We need to also make sure the public understands the urgency of climate change, that we really need to do something, and we need to do something very, very quick. So I think showing the public we've got an answer, a holistic answer, is actually in our favour. I think that was something which can sound nicely, I hope.
I think we need to explain that it's two sides of the same coin. We have a situation here in Nottingham where there's flood defences have been put in place along the Trent, on miles and miles of it, right through the city centre. And it ranges from a bund in the countryside through to sort of walls with specially constructed gates. And the reason that those have had to be built is because of climate change, because people do acknowledge that the sea levels are rising, and we're going to get much more sort of variable weather, and that includes a lot of flood, there's a lot of runoff, and that creates problems. So £22 million has had to be spent on these flood defences. That's £22 million that you can't spend on other things, on social measures, on health, on education. So there's that immediate tie. And the other one, social justice, is looking at, I was at a place called Crabtree Farm, which is an estate in the north end of Nottingham the other day. And the housing there, it was some old council housing, it's quite shoddy, it's very energy inefficient, and they're having to clad it to keep people warm there. So it's climate change and social justice are hand in hand. It's the poor that are affected the most.
Yeah, well, I quite agree. Obviously, the two things do go together. And it's not just, as I said earlier, the poor in this country that are affected most by climate change, by having fuel poverty, by having poorly insulated houses, so that they're in the terrible situation of having to either die of hypothermia or faced with an enormous bill. So the obvious answer to that would be what we campaigned on last time was the Green New Deal at the last European election, which was to bring jobs in insulation, in renewable energy expansion and so on. We have so much talent in this country, and yet we don't use it to its fulfilment. But also how climate change really affects the poor people of the world also. So it's the poor people in Bangladesh and places like that where the real hardship is coming from changes in the climate. So we need to make sure that people understand that, and we need to make sure that it's those people as well that are considered, as well as the future generations. So yeah, I think the two things go together, and it's very important that we make sure that that message comes across.
Yeah, I mean, I want to echo what all the other four candidates have said. You cannot just concentrate on climate change. It is a crucially important issue, but we do have to tackle inequality, social justice as well. To put it simply, I believe basically that capitalism is killing the planet. There's no other way around that. And I don't believe that the current system of production based for private profit is capable of doing what's necessary to tackle climate change, whilst still guaranteeing a decent standard of living for every person on Earth. I believe that to do something about climate change, we do need a planned economy based on common ownership of land and common ownership of the means of production. 1 minute was that?
Okay, well, pleased to be able to go last on this because there just seems there is basic agreement on our core agenda, which is that basically the Green Party is in favour of social justice and is in favour of fighting ecological calamity. It's an important point, and I certainly think that one of the things that we need to do next week, for instance, when hundreds of thousands of people hopefully will be marching for justice and for jobs, is to say that that's actually not enough of an agenda. It needs to be a green agenda too. The TUC are in favour of coming out. We need growth. We need growth. Labour Party. We need growth. We need growth. We need to say, well, we need more jobs, but they need to be green jobs. We need to have climate. We need to fight climate change. We need to fight the ecological crisis. We are not in favour of a return to growth at all costs. We need to have social justice, and we need to basically move our economy forward and transform our society on the basis of a more equal distribution of the world's resources. And as has been said, that doesn't just apply to the UK, but it's a worldwide thing. And what Richard said about two sides of the same coin, I think it's something that Romaine Phoenix, a friend of mine, used in her leadership campaign, and she used that very phrase, and I think it was taken on by several of the other candidates. And I'm glad that around this platform today we have a unanimity on it.